Today was like a day out of time. Truthfully, the next couple of weeks are going to be exactly the same. Because what darkness tried to do today was to hijack the timeline. This is much bigger than I thought it was. It's not the same being. It's not the same you. It's not the same me that was on the timeline from earlier today. Here's what happened today, you guys. We got unplugged from the timeline that we were on. Well, if I put it another way, we got unplugged from the timeline of the false matrix. We got elevated into a higher timeline. We got a little taste of the elevated timeline. Came back down into the false matrix timeline, went back into the elevated timeline. We did this a couple times, backwards and forwards. And every time we did, we lost touch with time. So if your day felt a little bit weird and you're feeling a little bit out of sorts, out of time, then you understand why. I want to explain to you why this happened. So today's conversation is definitely not something that I had planned. This is my post-massage look. I've just come in actually from a massage and this information came through and I just had to sit down off the cuff. Not planned really what I want to say, but this is such an, I don't have the word. And you guys should know by now that I'm pretty verbose and I don't generally battle with vocabulary. I don't know what the words are because where we are is so far beyond anything that we've seen before, anywhere we've been before. Where we are right now has broken time. And if time breaks, our linearity breaks. And if our linearity breaks, we lose our ability to articulate and we lose our connection with that very linear world that we lived in. We've been doing this for a long time. We've been breaking free from the false matrix for a very long time. We've experienced a lot of side effects like a loss of memory being one of them. That's very linked, you know that, right? The loss of short-term memory is very linked to letting go of the time matrix, because that's what a false matrix is. It's a matrix that is a time prison. When we step out of the time prison, we begin to experience and re-engage with our true self, which is an infinite self. We begin to re-engage not just with the infinite self, but with the divine matrix, also known as the organic universe. As this re-engagement occurs, we then get a sense of not just fulfillment, but a fullness or a wholeness of being. Then we get to contrast the wholeness of being that we experience based on the elevated consciousness that's streaming in. We get to contrast that to the emptiness that we experienced ourselves in and as in the false matrix. That emptiness was almost like a lifelessness, almost like a puppet, right? This is why we have terminologies like NPCs without realizing we were all NPCs at some point in time. An NPC being non-playable character, somebody who appears lifeless, somebody who appears to not even have a soul. They appear so unplugged from the system. We've all at some point in time been varying degrees of NPC. What's taking place right now is a divine intervention. The divine intervention was a hand that was played by the galactics because it was forced into place. And ironically and beautifully, just as predicted, right? I've always said this to you guys, that darkness will be its own undoing. And darkness most absolutely was. Sorry to put my hand in your face. I just realized my camera was skew. Darkness absolutely was its own undoing. Because what darkness tried to do today was to hijack the timeline. Darkness tried to use the eclipse event as a means of inserting. So they tried to use it as a portal or an entry point into the timeline to insert multiple fear events. They were never going to take the timeline over in one day. That wouldn't be possible, but they would begin the process of systematically imprinting these fear events into the timeline in order to get the timeline to U-turn and go back into the false matrix, because of course we were heading right out of the false matrix into a much higher trajectory. So with that intervention, they contravened where we are right now. Where are we? We are on the brink of ascension. This is a hands-off time, meaning you now have to let humanity. Either ascend or not. But now it's got to be humanity's choice. The malevolent ones, who are the archons that once engineered and controlled the false matrix, these beings chose to not listen to universal law because they're desperate, because they'll do pretty much anything to maintain control of the false matrix, even if it spells their own undoing and brings about their own demise, and that's exactly what they've done. They have forced the hand of the galactics. Now, I did cover this, I did report this, but this is much bigger than I thought it was. When I first gave you the video about the eclipse, I really said, well, you know, this is an amazing event, and it is. The galactics have come in, and I could feel that they had intervened, they had injected, essentially, for want of a better way of saying it, or boosted the timeline with a very high frequency energy that we were going to get to integrate and reverberate back into the collective consciousness, thus elevating the timeline. So that's a beautiful thing. But that elevation was way bigger than I imagined. That intervention was much deeper than I first saw. I have never felt the galactics come in so profoundly, so powerfully. The galactics were surrounded by their ancestral lineage, who we would call the celestials. The celestials are very ethereal beings. The celestials, if you could see them, are massive, absolutely massive beings of pure love, pure light. I know when I talk about massive beings, a lot of people have a lot of sometimes information and sometimes misinformation. And they go, oh, you're talking about the Nephilim, just in case your brain went there. No, I'm talking about truly divine beings of love. The celestials came in with the galactics. These are beings who are working with humanity. And what they do is they're protecting our ascension. They're protecting the integrity of our ascension. So if a malevolent move is made, they will counterbalance that with a benevolent move. And so the malevolent move was made to try to interject, and they will still continue to do that, by the way. The archonic forces are going to continue to try to interject into the timeline their own distraction and fear events. So we can look at weather manipulation or cataclysmic events, Armageddon-style events. We can look at missiles being shot. We can look at UFOs, all manner of events. It's going to be an onslaught. Court cases going on, Diddy, politicians, politicking, and all of the stuff going on. They're going to keep doing that, but for every move that they make, the counterbalance is ready. And the counterbalance, this is not a war. This is not, we're going to defend humanity. This is more like, you guys, I can just imagine the galactic kind of stroking their chin going, seriously, you guys, you've just made the game so much easier for humanity. There you were attempting to hijack the timeline, but actually what happened is you landed up inadvertently shooting yourselves in the foot, because now, as a direct result of what you've done, you're going to elevate that timeline. You're going to send it to where it couldn't get to faster, because of the malevolent intervention, because it calls for counterbalance now. It calls for galactic support. When you get unplugged from time in the way that we were today. So just to describe what happened, again, I went through it very briefly in the beginning. We were unplugged from time, meaning unplugged from the false matrix, so that we could experience a higher timeline. It was a timeline from the future. It was never a timeline that we were ready for. It was never a timeline that we were meant to steer ourselves into right now. It's a timeline that we were still going to walk into in the future. But because it's a higher timeline, allowing us to experience and interact with the energy on the higher timeline, by so doing, we imprint that energy, and then we take it back into the existing timeline that we're on, which is the one where there's this tussle for power, there's this attempt to hijack it, whilst at the same time the light workers are still busy steering it into a transcendent timeline. Now we've got this even more elevated timeline, and we are soaking in almost imagine it streaming, like this stream of higher frequency being soaked into our existing timeline. So this is a way of us connecting with a higher version of who we are and delivering it here into this point in time. When we do this, it kind of breaks our sense of time, though, because it plugs us into timelessness. It plugs us into the infinite. You know, we know these terminologies, like we know things like all time is now. There's a lot of people that say that in my comment section, oh, all time is now. But to know that all time is now and to experience infinity, these are two distinctly different things. Today we got the experience. Today we got plugged in, plugged in to another. And then plugged back in. But now it's not the same being. It's not the same you. It's not the same me that was on the timeline from earlier today. I'm pausing because I want this to sink in. I want you to feel the reverberance and the repercussion of what I'm saying. Somebody said to me just today, oh my gosh, I had this really interesting dream. And in this dream, I dreamt that I died. And it was this really interesting event. And I said, well, you did. We all did. Because the old self, the old version of ourselves, the old frequency of where we were, who we were, how we were, is no more. There is now an elevated version of you, which is to say a higher version of you, which is actually to say a more alive version of you, because that's what happens when one version of you comes to an end. It births the higher version of you. So that comes online. Now, I say this to you because there's absolutely going to be a lot of people that go, oh my gosh, I'm in such grief. I'm in such grief because I feel such loss, because I've lost the self, I've lost the density and the associated pain and the programs of the false matrix. I've lost the known self. So now there's going to be a grief process, and that's okay. I'm not saying that that's bad. I'm not saying that's wrong. What I am saying is don't be short-sighted. Please. That is so much a program of the false matrix, right? The false matrix taught us to always look at what we don't have. Now I want to draw your attention, please, to what you do have. What do you now have? You just got plugged into the higher version of you, the higher timeline. And in so doing, you got more you. You got a higher version of you. You got birthed into existence. You came alive in a whole new way. You've never been as present or as infused with light as you are right now. That's a victory. That's a celebration. So if you want to see the grief, that's okay, but you must also see the gain. That's absolutely essential. This will still happen multiple times over the course of the next couple of weeks. This moving into the higher timeline and back, higher timeline and back, higher timeline and back. Every time this happens, it's going to feel to you like you're being reshuffled. And in that reshuffling, you're going to feel a little bit discombobulated. In the discombobulation, you're going to feel like almost as if somebody's got you by the ankles and they're giving you a good old shake and everything's falling out of your pockets. The crazy part of that exquisite visual is that that's going to facilitate so much release, number one, because it's like the shaking loose of density. But number two, as you get put back together again, that's how I want you to think it. I want you to think of it, that you're kind of restructuring the body to accommodate for more light, to accommodate for more soul. And as that restructuring occurs, there's a version of you that will encounter synchronicities like you've never had before. Please look out for the synchronicity. Let me know in the comments below if you've already started to see it. Let me know in the comments below if you've already started to see the time anomalies. Today was like a day out of time, and truthfully, the next couple of weeks are going to be exactly the same. And we've been, by the way, just so you know, we've been out of time before. In other words, we've all had these experiences, normally not collectively, normally more at an individual level of being unplugged from time. Today was a collective experience, but it was the deepest experience that we've had as a collective. So we got to truly immerse ourselves, not just in the individual, but rather in this unified field of higher consciousness. And that's part of the homecoming that we really have been longing for. That's part of the belonging that we've been longing for, is that experience, not just of our own individual wholeness, but a wholeness within a tribe, within a collective of love, a collective of harmony. So where does this leave us? Where does this take us? It takes us closer. It elevates us further into a timeline and into a trajectory of sincere, profound, unequivocal, undeniable love. Unnegotiable love. And it delivers us there, almost like being delivered to the doorstep of love, right? If you could imagine it that way. And then we'll just sit there. For a lot of the next couple of weeks, you're going to be a little bit dazed and confused. You're going to be a little bit like, what? Who am I? Where am I? What's going on right now? You're going to be a little bit confused. That's the discombobulation. That's the unplugging from time. That's losing sequence a little bit. All of that is part and parcel of the whole game of being unstructured or unstrung and then restrung and put back together again. What an exciting thing to go through. We just never imagined that it would be this seamless, this easy, this fast. So many of you guys in my comment section have been saying things like, when is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? Not happening fast enough. Well, how'd you like them apples? This is happening fast, you guys. As in this elevation of consciousness. This is as fast as we can go. This is quantum. This is outside of time. I know I've said this before, but in case you've never watched videos of mine, I must just reiterate that this is the answer to the question that so many people ask when they say, how the hell is it possible that humanity is all going to ascend or mostly going to ascend? They've still got so much to go, so much to learn. Well, it's these interjections into the timeline of higher consciousness. It's this restructuring of the body to allow for more light to come in. Now, I'm going to be putting up a video, probably the next one after this quick update that I'm giving you, although it's not so quick now anymore, sorry. After this update that I'm giving you, the next video is going to go a little bit deeper into that restringing that I was talking about in today's conversation. I want you to be in receptivity, to be in humility. And that doesn't mean to be humiliated. It means to be humble. And to be humble is to be the opposite of entitled, which is also the opposite of demanding, which is really what happens when you begin creating. You're beginning to step back into the driver's seat of your life. That is what a truly creative power does. You begin to act more autonomously in your world. So let me know in the comments below, time anomalies, synchronicities, anything else you want to share with me. I would love to read it from my heart. All the way into yours. May it ripple into you, the land that you stand on, the area that you're in, and all who surround you. Speak to you really soon. In case you missed it, there is the video that I put up today about the eclipse. I'll speak to you really soon. Bye-bye for now.